The hum of the funeral home's air conditioner was drowned out by a sound no one expected to hear, a low, heartbroken whimper. All eyes, previously fixed on the priest or their own clasped hands, turned to the front of the room. There, beside the polished mahogany casket, was Major, a golden retriever the color of autumn wheat, resting his head on the edge of the coffin. His entire body trembled with a grief so raw, so human, that the carefully composed faces of the mourners began to crumble. This was the moment the funeral for Sarah Williams truly began, not with a eulogy, but with a silent, devastating language of a loyal heart breaking. The scent of lilies and old books hung heavy in the air of the Serenity Suite, a name that felt cruelly ironic today. People sat in stiff-backed pews, a sea of black wool and somber faces, trying to find the right balance between respectful composure and the crushing weight of loss. Sarah Williams had only been 32. A car accident on a rain-slick highway, a phone call that shattered worlds, a life full of promise extinguished in a violent instant. Her husband, David, sat in the front row, a hollowed-out shell of the man he used to be. He stared at his wife's face, serene and impossibly still in the casket, but he couldn't truly see her. The image was blurred by a film of unshed tears and the sheer, incomprehensible fact of her absence. And then there was Major. He had been Sarah's shadow, her furry soulmate. David had given him to her as a wriggling, 8-week-old puppy, a jubilant ball of fluff to cheer her after a difficult year. From that day on, they were inseparable. Major had seen Sarah through career changes, through the loss of her own mother, through lazy Sunday mornings and exhilarating hikes in the state park. He was a silent witness to her life, his loyalty the one constant in a world of variables. David had debated leaving Major at home. It felt like the proper thing to do. But the dog had been listless and anxious since the night of the accident, pacing the empty house, whining at the door, refusing to eat. Bringing him felt, in some strange way, like the only honest thing to do. Major had loved her, too. He deserved to say goodbye. The dog had been quiet during the service, lying at David's feet, his head on his paws, his intelligent, brown eyes fixed on the casket. He seemed to understand the solemnity of the occasion, the heavy silence. The priest spoke of Sarah's laughter, her kindness, her love for animals and the outdoors. He mentioned the special bond she shared with a beloved dog, and a soft, collective sigh rippled through the room. It was when the final prayer ended, and a fragile silence descended, that Major stirred. He rose slowly, his nails clicking softly on the polished wooden floor. He didn't look at David. He didn't look at the mourners. His entire focus was on the casket. He walked to the front of the room, his gait hesitant, and then he stopped. He lifted his head, his wet nose twitching as he inhaled the unfamiliar scent of the satin lining and the floral arrangements, searching for the one scent that mattered, her scent. He found it. A low, guttural whine escaped him, a sound of pure confusion and distress. He stretched his neck, placing his chin gently on the padded rim of the coffin, right beside Sarah's folded hands. He sniffed her hand, then let out another, louder whimper, nudging her cold, still fingers with his nose as if trying to wake her from a deep sleep. "Play," he seemed to be thinking. "It's time for our walk. Why are you so still?" David watched, his breath catching in his throat. He saw the dog's shoulders begin to shake. A tremor ran through Major's entire body, from his twitching ears to the tip of his feathered tail, which was tucked tightly between his legs. Then, the most devastating thing happened. Tears, real, glistening tears, welled in the dog's eyes and traced wet paths through the fur on his muzzle. He was crying. A soft gasp came from somewhere in the middle of the room. An elderly aunt pulled a lace handkerchief from her purse and pressed it to her mouth, her shoulders shaking. A stoic uncle, who had served 2 tours overseas and thought he was immune to displays of emotion, looked away, blinking rapidly, his jaw clenched tight. The dog's grief was a mirror, reflecting the pain each person in the room was fighting to contain. They had been holding it in, being strong for David, being proper for the occasion. But Major had no such social contracts. His sorrow was primal, unfiltered, and utterly honest. He didn't care who saw him cry. He only knew that his person was here, but she was gone, and his world had collapsed into a confusing nightmare of strange smells and aching silence. He let out one last, heart-shattering whine, a drawn-out sound of pure longing, and then rested his head fully on the edge of the coffin, his body slumping in defeat. He closed his eyes, the tears still leaking out, and he just stayed there, keeping his final, silent vigil. That was the breaking point. A young woman, Sarah's best friend, broke into open, ragged sobs. The sound unlocked something in the room. Soon, the quiet was filled with the soft, muffled cries of dozens of people, their composure washed away by the tide of a dog's unconditional love and loss. The priest, who had presided over hundreds of funerals, later said he had never seen a eulogy more powerful, or a scene that more perfectly captured the essence of what it means to love and be loved. David finally moved. He knelt beside Major, wrapping his arms around the dog's neck, burying his face in the familiar, warm fur. He wasn't comforting the dog was comforting him. In that shared, profound grief, they found a connection, a tiny raft in an ocean of sorrow. The scene at the funeral that day made everyone cry not because it was sad, but because it was true. It was a raw, unscripted testament to a love that asked for nothing and gave everything. It was a proof that the deepest bonds transcend species, and that the purest heartache is felt not in words, but in the quiet, tearful devotion of a faithful dog, weeping for an owner who would never come home again.